Coming up next, we have a tag team duo. One lead writer and one art director from Night School Studios are going to give a talk on how they approach the process of creating characters, especially when those characters need to face really pivotal moments within their games. So, without further ado, I'm going to get out of your way, but I would love to see some hype in chat from our upcoming speakers.
Welcome to our chat, Characters Not Cliches. I'm Adam Hines, lead writer and co-founder of Night School.
And I'm Ruel Pascual, studio art director at Night School. Adam, can you tell everyone about Night School, who we are, and what kind of games we make?
I certainly can. Night School Studio makes story games where the way you interact with the story and narrative and dialogue in particular is kind of the core mechanic. We started out with OXENFREE, then Afterparty. We made an Apple Arcade kind of sci-fi space adventure called Next Stop Nowhere. And now we're currently in development on OXENFREE II, Lost Signals. Our big goal was, and still to this day mostly, is to make games like the movies that Sean and I just loved as kids. So there were these big 80s Spielbergian things that were filled with wonder, filled with characters that were relatable. So I'm thinking of things like Poltergeist, like Goonies, like Monster Squad, Stand By It, By Me. A huge part of those movies and why they worked for us is that the characters themselves, they are people that you feel like you've met. They feel like people in your own life, except that they also express themselves in very unique, memorable ways. They're usually going through some sort of trauma, some sort of big life change, a looming existential threat kind of hangs over their heads. And then at the same time, something crazy happens outside of that forces them to re-examine themselves and re-examine exactly what they're going through the lens of this outside, bigger than life change. So Ruel, how do we kind of go about making characters? What would you say is important?
That's a great question. We talked about it, and then we think there are three pillars that help ideate and define our characters. One of them is they are unique within tropes. Stories are tropes, but the characters are unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also want to give them a personal challenge that directly reflects their big world problem.
And the third one is each aspect needs to be specific to them. How they talk, what they wear, how they move. The characters we're going to talk about first is Alex from our first game. Adam, can you tell people about OXENFREE?
Yeah, OXENFREE is a story about a group of teenagers that go to an island to have a party. It's like their end of the year big bash. But as you do, they inadvertently open this hellish rift, this portal that threatens their very existence. And no, it's not the capitalist theocracy that awaits them after graduation. It's ghosts. It's terrifying ghosts that want to pour out of this portal and steal their soul. The player controls Alex, who's the main character. She's a teenager dealing with some personal issues. But actually, before we get into the story details, Ruel, because of the limitations we set ourselves up for with design and mechanics, how did Alex really get designed to make her feel unique?
Yeah, it was really a choice for studio to keep the camera wide, like playing in this game in this very illustration style environments. We knew our character scale was going to be a challenge. The third person POV relates to one of our second pillars of characters having a personal challenge, characters feeling small in this big world problem that we created for them in this game. The character designs needed to be all unique and really read clear from the game's wide camera. The player character Alex needed to read from a distance. Her high ponytail and her big jacket made her silhouette really special and unique and stand out in this vast environments we created. Alex is designed by using complementary colors. Red and green made her pop from the interleaved backgrounds. Adam, how did you find her voice and what were your inspirations for writing?
Yeah, one of our pillars is to craft these characters so they remain unique within familiar story tropes. And we were really greatly inspired by late 90s, early 2000s teen dramedies. So like My So-Called Life, like Freaks and Geeks, shows that showed teens as being very flawed, but still very intelligent people and didn't really lean on the fact that they were kids and didn't know as much as maybe other shows would present them as. What happens to them is very typical. You know, they're going through relationship problems, they're feeling aimless in their life direction, they're getting nervous about entering adulthood, but how they actually think and react and speak to these situations is very unique to themselves.
There's more of a reason as to why Alex is wearing that jacket, right?
There is. So Alex had a brother, and this was her brother's coat. It's a very easy thing in writing to kind of give your main character this big singular tragedy that they're trying to overcome. And that's exactly what we did. We said, Alex, that's going to be her main thing that players can hook into for her backstory, is that she had a brother, Michael. He tragically died a year before the game's events. The town kind of vaguely blames her for it, and she's going through that at the moment that you start playing the game. It's just a great, big, obvious, big thing that any one of us has struggled to deal with, that we can relate to. We all know someone probably that lost someone very close to them at a young age. And it directly addresses actually another pillar, just giving characters personal challenges. Her jacket used to be her brother's, so she wears it to remember and honor him. It's a great visual signifier and visual reminder at all times that this is what's really most important to Alex. Within the story, Alex is being introduced to her new stepbrother at the same time. So while on the very same night, her entire universe is literally being threatened to be consumed by ghosts, that's happening too. And it should kind of feel like that. It would feel like that to a teenager, having this interloper kind of come into your family. As you play the game, making dialogue choices and thinking what Alex would kind of say and do, most players kind of start just thinking instinctively, doing what they think that they would do if they were in that situation. But things like having her wear that coat and reminding you always of who Alex is, that she is this individual, unique character. Hopefully by the end of the game, you've gotten into this loop where you're choosing choices both based on what you would do, but also based on how you want your Alex to be, how you think she would put things, how you think she would say things. So hopefully players kind of learn to honor the character and honor kind of what the story is telling you about the character. So what about Alex's animation and movement, Ruel, is specific to her?
That's a great question. That actually hits the third pillar we created. Each aspect needs to be specific to them. How they walk, how they talk, what they wear, how they move, really. Basically how she's animated in her acting choices. We took a lot of inspiration from what you wrote. From story and background perspective, we wanted her to feel like a normal kid. She's not good at everything. She's private. A lot of her moments are unsure, not putting herself out there. She kind of, if you push her, she kind of spikes in two modes. Internally, she's kind of don't look at me, or she gets mad and point out how smart she is and what she can really do. From the game's design and players' interaction, she had to be snappy in her animations. Her movements are different from all the other characters. Her acting choices that she would make and how she would react to things are only unique to Alex. And player control should really feel like responsive. A lot of the animations we see in the slide are just very snappy and very responsive to the player's controls. And there's a lot of environments we have to cover, so we wanted to get her from one place to another very quickly. And with the wide camera, characters' gestures, this game really needed to be big and broad, like the play. So all the choices that they make and all the silhouettes and poses needed to be clear from afar and needed to communicate really to the player how they are feeling, what kind of choices they make. And that really needs to have a lot of clarity from this wide camera angle. Well, that kind of wraps up our first character, Alex. Let's now talk about our second character, Satan.
Satan, always a fun topic. This is my favorite part of the slide deck. In the game Afterparty, you were trying to escape hell with your best pal. So of course you're going to meet Satan at some point. In Afterparty, you play as Milo and Lola. They're two recent college graduates who are struggling to imagine themselves in the outside world. And then it turns out they don't even have to, because they recently died and they don't remember how, they don't even remember why, but they find themselves in hell. And they quickly discover that there's a loophole where if you can find and outdrink and outparty Satan, he'll actually open the door and let you back out into the real world. So Satan obviously is a very unique character with unique challenges. Ruel, how do we go about designing someone like this in this world?
Great question. In Afterparty, we really wanted to put everything that's been done before with Hell, especially the character Satan. We wanted him to be iconic but relevant to the current times. He was active on social media and partied for hundreds of years. And Adam really wanted him to be very tall, flamboyant, and prominent. Satan's character design was based on layering outfits. He's been around for centuries, so we wanted him to kind of be able to collect these different outfits throughout the times that they're kind of popular, and also with that layering, that kind of bulked up his frame and widened him, and his very impressive kind of stature. So we wanted to have him kind of stand out of a room once you see him at a party. So everyone knows Satan. How did you go about writing Satan in this world, Adam?
Yeah, the hardest part with having Satan be a character that he's been a character in people's minds for the better part of 3,000 years. He's a story unto himself, so that unique within tropes pillar is kind of even especially more important here. Just like everyone knows what romantic comedy is and those beats, every single human being has an image of who the devil is. So we tried to make ours special within still the confines of what makes Satan Satan. So he should still be intelligent. He should still be charming. He should still be pretty much against God. He should be Satan. However, our version of him has a lot of insecurities. He has a lot of doubts. He has a lot of fears and desires still, and they bubble up throughout the game. Also with Satan and writing a character like this is a great opportunity to get really obtuse with the language, to get very strange with the references, be very specific. I have a bit of a pet theory that stories should feel not like someone is directly telling you a tale, but that you're sitting at a bar and you're overhearing two really good friends tell themselves a tale. So those two really good buddies would speak in shorthand. They would go in and out of languages that you might not know. They would reference in-jokes. They would just have a lot of stuff that would surround and wrap that story that would make you feel behind at times and lost at times and only get the general gist instead of the specific. And I just always find when writing that way, people kind of want to invest. They want to find out more. It just feels more real. So with Satan, it was great to lean into that. He's been around for 1 billion years, so he should know a lot, and he should be referencing a lot, and the players should kind of feel like they're trying to play catch up at all times. Which also speaks to another kind of fun aspect of him. Satan in Afterparty will frequently break the fourth wall. He'll talk directly to the player in a roundabout way. You don't really know if he's talking to Milo and Lola or actually to me sitting on the couch. And we were able to kind of lean into that because Milo and Lola in the adventure is terrified and scared, and they're nervous all the time. They're in hell and they want to get out of it. But the player is playing an adventure comedy, so they're kind of relaxed. They should be having fun. They should be making choices just to see what's going to happen. And that's really how Satan's character presents himself and how he is. The player actually has more to relate to Satan and his perspective in this game than Milo and Lola, technically, because Satan's is very relaxed. He's doing what he wants to do.
So Adam, there's definitely a lot of characters in Afterparty. There's like humans, there's demons, and you demanded Satan to be huge. Why?
Because it's fun, obviously, just having a big 30-foot monster walking around. But also it hit a pillar of having a specific aspect of their characterization, making sure that they feel and look and appear unique, and like this is the only way that they could be. We were really inspired by other references to Satan in the past in historical texts and other religions, where he is frequently painted as being this immense, colossal beast. We were particularly taken with Dante's description of him as being this huge three-headed monster that's encased in a lake of ice and he can't move. We also just didn't want to subvert expectations with this particular aspect of him. We build him up a lot through the first third of the game, and then you get to meet him. And he's the biggest guy in the room. He takes up the entire space. He's talking to people, he's partying, and we just wanted you to really be kind of smacked in the face with Satan when you walk in. Obviously, this demand, this request kind of brought up a lot of technical challenges, making him so big in a game with a lot of small demons and humans running around. How did you, Ruel, kind of go about overcoming them?
Yeah, that hits one of our pillars of wanting characters to be unique, right? Like Satan's design was so fun and intricate. We knew it was going to be a challenge from a 3D modeling and rigging perspective, and even more so in animation. Um, with him being huge on screen, with our third-person camera, he really looks huge. So we really have to serve that design to really work well on screen. Um, Layering his clothes and detail need to have a certain weight. In order to serve this design, we had to technically think about what we wanted to be animated by hand or handled procedurally in the game. What's going to save animated time? Designers time from animating every bit of Satan to have his clothes overlap and follow through. But ultimately, the solution was part hand key joint driven animations, and the other part was mostly simulated cloth driven animations for the fabric pieces that you see here in this walk cycle. They ended up breaking up most important pieces of geo that needed to be simmed to their own group and set colliders on them, so you can really see that belt, for example, hitting his knees when it comes across. So it took a lot of trial and error to find the right damping and stiffness to all the clothing, but we really managed to make it look and feel alive to serve that character's design purpose and personality. But yeah, it was great to really have that challenge and kind of execute it in the way we were able to do it in Afterparty. That kind of concludes our section for Satan. Now let's talk about our latest game in production, OXENFREE II: Lost Signals. Adam, can you give us a sneak peek of the story?
Yeah, wait a minute, who put this in here? This game isn't even out yet. OXENFREE II: Lost Signals. So a sequel is its own trope, and the pillar of unique within tropes felt especially pertinent when designing a character who's going to be in one. Riley is the main character of OXENFREE II. We decided to keep the world of OXENFREE, meaning Kamina and the supernatural, the scientific-y, a little bit of how we just explain how everything's possible that happened in OXENFREE 1. We wanted to keep the rule set and the world. And we talked a bit back and forth of if Alex should be a main character in this game again, should the characters be back, but we landed in a place where it should be someone new, someone else, someone older, from a different background and perspective on life to go through a similar adventure as the first one. So Riley should not be just a grown-up version of Alex, of course. She should have a unique combination of similarities and differences too. She grew up in the same town, so they're going to have a lot of commonalities there, but from a very different socioeconomic background. Alex grew up in a very typical middle-class home. She had a very probably optimistic view on life, thinking good things happen to good people, until the rug really got pulled out from under her with the tragic death of Michael. But Riley grew up in a single dad house. They were struggling all the time. There was a lot of friction. So she kind of expects stuff to go wrong just from jump. So she's going to have a very different outlook on things when things do go really, really wrong. So Riley was never so sheltered as Alex is a big kind of key part there.
So Adam, like, what was the trope we're challenging then in OXENFREE II?
Definitely the coming of age story. Most coming of age stories focus on youth, on people who are under 20 or just graduating college, at the oldest 21, 22. And you are projecting into the future and looking at the life that you want to have and getting concerned about it. You're really coming of age. Riley, in her mid-30s, is more than twice as old as any of the cast in OXENFREE 1. She's already made a lot of life decisions. She's already kind of charted a course for her. But her coming of age version of that is to be able to look back and say, were all those choices the right ones that I made? Should I have made different ones? And now that I'm at this incredibly intense, scary, harrowing juncture in my life, is that going to push me to make different choices now going forward? We also thought a lot about Alien and Aliens, actually. In Alien, you have what amounts to basically space truckers dealing with one monster that boards their ship. So it's people that are not equipped to handle any sort of crazy problem like that, but they just have to deal with one of them, and it still destroys everybody and takes this one woman and a cat to beat that back. So in Aliens, it's literally aliens. It's now thousands upon thousands of these creatures that we saw do so much damage and terror in the first one. So the filmmakers had to up the ante on the heroes. So instead of space truckers now, it's really more like space marines and space mercs, and they have machine guns and rocket launchers, and they can nuke things from orbit if they really are pushed. but they still are struggling and they're still dying because the threat has now raised to equal that. And we wanted that same feeling with Riley too. She's very equipped, she's very capable, she's much more capable than, at least on the surface, than any of the teams who are in OXENFREE 1. But the problem that she's facing in OXENFREE 2 is much worse than what the teams had to deal with in OXENFREE 1. So how did we make Riley Ruel distinctive from the characters of OXENFREE 1?
Yeah, we were really leaning into the pillars of personal challenge and unique within tropes here. We wanted Riley's design to be more mature as she is kind of experiencing this her own coming of age story in OXENFREE 2. Her design is really based on more function. Her job as an environmental researcher required her to be more equipped out in the field. Her vest is kind of indicative of her tough shell and her past. After experiencing military and having that skill, she's kind of thrown into the civilian life of her hometown Camina. And similar to Alex, her red hair and yellow jacket make her silhouette really clearly from afar in this third-person camera. And with Riley, there were really no frills in her outfit. She's very practical. She doesn't wear a heart on her shoulder. She's very logical and kind of unsentimental. The kids' clothes are kind of bigger and baggier in OXENFREE 1, and characters in OXENFREE 2 are much older and more fitted. And kind of the animations too in OXENFREE 2, we really wanted to up the ante. There's more traversal involved, so her outfit really was made for her and designed to really tackle some of the challenges she has in traversal and climbing and things that she has to do as a job to be able to kind of work in the game. And it really helped us to kind of define this maturity and that coming of age story in OXENFREE 2. So Adam, does Riley's character design reflect her personal challenge, and what is that personal challenge in OXENFREE 2?
Yeah, it's a good question if her character design really reflects her personal challenge, because it technically doesn't and does. I really like where we landed here, where her personal challenge, first of all, is just really trying to get her act just in a place that she feels comfortable in. So it's just to get her life just all in a good spot. She is the sort of person where it's like it's hard to remember what her last 16 weekends were doing. It's been in a fog and a haze. She's just been drifting from job to job, having no real aspirations, no real goals. And some recent life events have really forced her to take a good hard look at herself and say, I need to put some stakes down. I need to reboot. And at first blush, she does look very that already. She looks very capable. She does not look like a mess. She has her walkie-talkie clasped to her strap there. She has fitted clothes. She looks like she's going to go out there and climb and do this job really well. But you quickly realize while playing the game that how she's dressed is really just her projection of who she wants to be. This is not normally what she would wear. This is not normally how she would act. She wouldn't be this professional on her first day at job, but she's told herself, this is who I need to be now. So it's very much that dress for the job you want, not for the job that you have, sort of a thing. So I like that the players could take something very particular at just looking at her and then realize that her inner self actually runs instinctively counter to that. She's just trying to be this person that she's showing the player that she is. So we really hope you enjoyed this glimpse into OXENFREE 2 and Riley's story. But before we wrap up, we just want to do a quick recap. So earlier we explained our pillars to refresh your memory. They are make sure your characters are unique within tropes. Stories can be tropey, but the characters should be unique within them. Give them a personal challenge that directly reflects their big world problem. And each aspect needs to be specific to them. How they talk, how they walk, how they move, how they express themselves should feel like only this character could say that or do that. To kind of check ourselves against those pillars, we like to ask ourselves questions though during the production of these games. So some of these questions are and can be really useful to you too. One is, what is your character going through other than just the story? You know, characters will have lives before this particular week, before this particular day or month or year, however long your story is. They have lives before that. They'll presumably have lives after. What were their goals? What were their challenges before and after? What are still going to be their remaining goals and challenges? I highly doubt that this one story is going to give them every single piece of fruition that they've ever hoped for. So just thinking of where they were before and where they're going after is a great device to get your characters in a good place. Does your story itself challenge the perception of what it means to be a typical hero or a main character? Don't always come at story points thinking, well, what would be the coolest thing for this person to do? What would a really heroic person do here? They would obviously take up the challenge. They would obviously do this. Just think about what you would do. Think about what your best buddy would do. Think about what your mom, what your aunt would do in this situation. It's going to be very different from a more stereotypical hero or villain. They're going to have their own unique fears and unique reasons for doing the things that the story kind of demands that they do. And another one is make sure your characters comprise of their own personal traits, not tropes, not shorthand. Think about their history, think about their personal reactions based on their history, based on their background. You know, they've had a lot of stuff happen to them before the story, good, bad, in between, but it should all feel like it's shaping how they put things, how they think about things, and make sure that that comes up from the more cliched aspects of your plot.
Awesome. It's great insight, Adam. From an art perspective, is your character recognizable? Can you pick them out of a crowd? Do they stand out? Is there a unique mix of elements that you could only be your character? Think about what's in the backstory that you can add to your character and what that kind of difference makes in their design. Figure out really what moment in their life they're in, what they love, what their personal challenges are, what they're kind of going through. Those answers should be reflected in their designs and what they wear. Make interesting observations in the character's design that can help communicate their story. That's it. Yeah, that kind of concludes our talk. Adam and I hope you all enjoy and can take something away from our pillars at night school. Adam, any famous last words or prizes?
No prizes. Everyone who watched this, treat yourself to something stupid. Just spend $10 on something fun. But other than that, just follow us on all these nice platforms here. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for OXENFREE II.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much to our lovely speakers for that wonderful talk. In the meantime, I'd love to mention, if you didn't already know that Game Devs of Color Expo has their own Etsy shop. It's the same handle that you see in the lower corners here, gdocExpo. If you haven't checked it out, we've got shirts, pins, and other merch for sale. Come support!